Okay, so I normally post only vlog videos, but I wanted to talk about this thing for a while, so this is going to be another talk video for you guys. So either sit back and relax and do whatever while listening, or enjoy this Destiny gameplay, whatever you want. But I appreciate you being here to listen to what I have to say. So back in 2024 and up till I started making videos, I was actually going into conniptions a lot about finding work, how I'm going to take care of myself, and how I am going to potentially take care of others that I cared about, right? The job market was and still is absolutely cooked. My goodness, it sucks. I have spent so many years trying to find design or content work, and I had no avail with it. I remember praying for work a lot or praying for just something to happen. I realized that I didn't trust God enough at that point. So going into 2025, I decided that's what I was going to work on most. So in the last year or so, of course, as I just said, I've been working on trusting God more. I released two videos earlier this year about how I felt like I was surrounded by closed doors, and that reflects a bit on the no avail of jobs or anything like that. And I also released a video on how the slice of life I took felt much better than the one I am currently in. And that was me reflecting on where I was and my displeasure with it. Being in environments that suited me was great because it made me feel like, oh, wait, this is exactly how I would like to be or exactly where I'd want to be if God is okay with it. But the downside of that is that it also magnified the fact that I was not happy. So the one thing I knew that I couldn't do was the same thing over and over again while expecting different results. So I decided to do something I never would have done even up till a year ago, and that was move to Raleigh without having anything set up. I always wanted to move, mainly to Europe, because that's where a lot of my friends are and their way of life suits me, I feel, but I would have needed to have everything set up first, like a job or school or marriage or something. That's one of the big three that you usually need in order to go across the pond, right? So in this instance, you don't need that obviously because I'm still moving in the country, but I had none of those things, which is one of the main things that makes people move. All I had was the ability to drive Uber to make money that will sustain me for a certain amount of time. I prayed about it for a long time and I still felt at peace about it for a while. So I decided last September that I was going to start driving to make money. My goal was to have enough money on me to be able to take care of myself under a realistic budget for a whole year while I try to find work to sustain myself for longer. From what I saw when I looked at housing and food and taxes and stuff like that, even $20 an hour would sustain me if I lived completely on my own. So I personally really liked my chances at having an entire year to do that, to find a job that pays $20 an hour. Even if I couldn't find that much income, I could still extend my time by finding literally any income at all. So, like I said, I liked my chances a lot. I decided I should go come late January the following year. So I told my parents this, and my mom obviously hated the idea because what mother doesn't have anxiety when thinking about their children taking risks, right? And my dad understood it and just gave me the normal warnings you can imagine any dad giving. So I had a financial goal, right? I had a bit of money on me already, but I wanted to originally make about $8,000 over the course of the final 4 months driving. I got to that number because I ran budgets through AI, and that was the number I realized I would need to get in order to have enough money to take care of myself for at least a year in the most expensive case scenario. I remember being a bit behind on my goals the entire time, and come late October, I actually hit a deer. I was fine, but my car was out of commission for the whole of November because USAA had to get it fixed and everything. In this instance, I remember like knowing I was going to be behind on my financial goals, and honestly, I decided I was just not going to worry about it and trust God. I remember just hearing a lot of testimonies about how God makes things work even when the math is not mathing. I decided I would just wait it out and drive more when I get the chance. So it's late November after Thanksgiving, right? And I got back home after a great trip and I started driving again. Before I look at the numbers, wondering if I should just try to grind as hard as possible to make up for lost time. And then I realized I initially somehow did my math wrong, even though I was using artificial intelligence. I didn't need 8,000. I only needed 4,000. I have no clue how I managed to do that, but I just shrugged and laughed at myself as I decided to drive some more. This was great news because with this update, I was only like $500 to $700 away from my goal, and I would have a whole month to hit that goal. Like the first night driving, though, a real estate agent that goes to my church who knows that I like design goes and texts me, "I might have a job for you, Sam. Are you interested?" So I'm just sitting there and I'm just like, there's no way that right as I'm about to leave, this happens, right? So I just decided to play it out anyways. I was like, all right, sure, let's see where it goes. Turns out that this position would have been doing social media work and it would be in my wheelhouse. This timing was hilarious, but I decided to keep on driving while going through the interview process. And the person who interviewed me wound up giving me the job off of a phone call interview. So I have been at this job for probably a couple of weeks to a month by the time this video posts. And I can confidently say that this is by far the best and most accommodating fit I've had in my life when it comes to work. One of the reasons why I wanted to move abroad is because the laws out in Europe support workers a lot more and treat them more like humans than money-making machines that run on food and water. For example, Denmark has a law where you get 5 weeks paid time off a year, and you have to be able to take what's called a main holiday, which means you can take 3 of those weeks consecutively. Out here in America, most of us don't get anything like that. However, the person I work directly for has been nothing but accommodating and considerate towards me and very nice. And this job does seem to come with those benefits that I mentioned before. I was seeing people up till the day before I start a job, and those people are down in Virginia. And she told me I could stay with them as long as I want, and I could start a job whenever I want, because that is time that I will not get back. I had plenty of time with them already, but it's the fact that she offered that, which meant so much to me. Also, the physical work I am doing is a perfect fit for me. What I can provide is exactly what they want. This job is a great fit for me, and I didn't even apply for it. So, needless to say, I am not moving to Raleigh after this happened. I am still going to move, just not to Raleigh. So, I want to highlight 2 parts in the Bible that my experience feels similar to. This first one is in Matthew chapter 8, verses 23 to 26, and I'll read them aloud. Then he got into the boat, and his disciples followed him. Suddenly, a furious storm came up on the lake, so that the waves swept over the boat, but Jesus was sleeping. The disciples went and woke him, saying, "Lord, save us, we're going to drown." Now, before I finish reading the rest of it, I want to point out that 4 of Jesus' disciples were professional fishermen. That meant that they spent a ton of time in water and probably saw their fair share of storms. So for experienced people in water to be this scared, it had to have been extremely serious. So back to the verses. In 26 it says, "And he replied, 'You of little faith, why are you so afraid?' Then he got up and rebuked the winds and the waves, and it was completely calm." So it doesn't explicitly say which disciples it were that went to Jesus and woke him up all worried and panicked, but there is good reason to believe that one of them was Peter. Peter was always the one that was first to speak, first to take action, just a stronger presence, if you will. So the second part I want to highlight is in Acts chapter 12. So for context in this, Peter is much older now. Jesus has since ascended into heaven, come back from the dead, and Peter was arrested along with a few early church members who were being persecuted by King Herod. King Herod was persecuting these Christians because he realized that it got him popular with the Jews. In verses 6 to 7, it says, "The night before Herod was to bring him to trial, Peter was sleeping between 2 soldiers, bound with 2 chains, and sentries stood guard at the entrance. Suddenly, an angel of the Lord appeared, and a light shone in the cell. He struck Peter on the side and woke him up. 'Quick, get up,' he said, and the chains fell off of Peter's wrists." So Peter ended up following the angel and escaping. What I'm trying to point out is that Peter went from being a person that was panicking about the very real possibility of death while Jesus was sleeping there with him, to being the one that was sleeping in the cell when he had a trial waiting for him, and there was certainly a possibility that he was going to be killed just like the others. I feel like I was the young Peter that was panicking up till 2025 when I really had no clue what it was going to look like for me. I prayed a lot, but I was still getting worried. Fast forward to 2026, I'm about 6 months removed from my time with my parents running out. I do not know if I will have enough money to take care of myself long enough to live in Raleigh, and I have no idea where I'm going to be or where I'm going to be living or who with when I get down there. And yet, I felt super peaceful about it. I felt very just grateful for the ability to try my best and make progress towards something, even if it was not going to be enough. I was completely comfortable with moving for good and having it not work out at all and winding up homeless, as moving back would have not been an option. And at the 11th hour, a job that I did not even apply for falls out of the sky. Not just a job, but a job that's a perfect fit for me and does everything that I look for in a job. Like an 8 out of 10 job at minimum. So I am not saying that the second you release your anxiety and find peace and trust in God, that something will happen instantly or in any given amount of time. However, He always has our best interest in mind, and His timing is better than ours ever will be. I did not know that this job and moving situation would come to me as soon as it did. However, I wanted to be able to look back on the season of waiting I went through and not regret how I was. And by that, I mean, I want to be able to say, yeah, I trusted God's timing and I did not try to do things myself. Now, there were definitely times where it hurt, of course, but it was more than worth the wait. But I wanted to share this with whoever may be listening to give encouragement. Whatever your situation is, it is best not to panic, but to have faith that God will take care of you. It is far easier said than done, but I promise that you will not regret it. I know I can consider myself to be lucky and privileged, as my situation was not as dire as a lot of people's situations are, and it was not nearly as dire as it possibly could have been. But the principle still applies. It hurt a lot for me going through that waiting, but I would go through it all over again instead of changing it, because it was God's plan. And if you do not know Jesus, I highly recommend trying to have a relationship with Him. Surrendering my burdens and surrendering control and letting Him have control over my life and soul was the best decision I have ever made. Nothing has or ever will come close. There is an enormous amount of peace that just comes with seeing all sorts of situations that might make one anxious or uncertain or even fearful, and knowing that Jesus has my best interest in mind and that He will not leave me nor forsake me. And I just want that for everyone, which is why I'm telling you about this today, because this is a primary example of what has been done for me, right? So anyways, that's just what I wanted to share with you. Thank you for listening to me yap. Hopefully you enjoyed the gameplay I put here while I was talking. Stay safe out there. God bless. Have a good day. Goodbye.